So, welcome to chapter 82, Kapitel Pei Beis. If you're using the Kahas Tehillim, we are on page 102. Mizmar la'asav, Psalm for Asaf, Elikim Nitzav, Hashem stands, Nitzav is standing, but Adas Kel. Adas Kel is a council of, if you want to translate it literally, Adas is a group, okay? And Ada is what we call 10. Which we're going to talk about on the second round. So it's a group, Kel, a godly group. Okay. Bekerev, Elikim, Yishbait, among the Yishbait, among the judge, is Elikim. Okay, among the judges is Elikim. Pasuk 2, Admasai. So until when, how long is it going to be that Tishbetu Avel, that you're going to judge wrongfully? Avel. It's not even wrongfully, it's actually evil. It even has the same sounding word, avel and evil, right? To judge evilly in a wrong way. And the face of the wicked, tisusela, you're going to uplift, or you're going to face towards the Rishayim. Shiftu dalviyasim, you should render justice for the poor and for the orphan. Ani, the poor, there's different levels of poor. Dal, Ani, Rosh. Rosh, Hatzdiku, for the poor and the destitute, you should find righteous. You should find the righteous judgment. Pasuk 4, Paltu Dal, save the poor, the Evian and the destitute. Miyad Rishayim Atzilu, save them from the hands of the evil. Lo Yadu, V'lo Yavinu, they don't know. They don't understand. They walk in the dark. They go in the dark. And this destroys the foundations of the earth. I said, you guys are really Elikim, okay, which we're going to get to in the second round. And lofty. The sons of lofty, the sons of Elyon, of high, Kulchem, all of you. But really what's going to happen is Adam to Musun, you will die like Adam, which will also translate on the second round. And as one of the Sarim, the princes, he translates over here, but it's more translates as a minister. As one of the ministers, Tipailu, you will fall. And final pasuk, Kuma Elikim, Hashem, please arise, Shafta Aretz, render judgment on the earth, Ki Ata, because you, Hashem, capital U, capital Y, right? Ki Ata, because you, Hashem, Tinchal B'chal Agayim, you will be in charge, be on top of, or here it translates possess all the nations, but it's more that you'll rule or judge all the nations. Okay, so this is on a first round with there's a lot of words. We can make a basic understanding out of it, but still there's definitely a lot more that needs to be understood. So let's go back, and we're going to start off with a few lines at the top of the chapter. This psalm admonishes those judges who feign ignorance of the law, dealing unjustly with the pauper or the orphan, while coddling the rich and pocketing their bribes.
Hasn't changed.
World hasn't changed. Oh, good gesagt. It's true. True. Nothing's changed. People change, but the politics and the way of exactly. Okay, so number one, before we even get into this chapter, if this chapter looks at all familiar, so then you daven, you say the song of the day on Tuesdays, because the Shir Shal Yom of Tuesday is this kapitel. Okay, so when you're in shul and you say Ayom Yom Shlishi B'Shabbos, so you know that you're going to say Kapitel Pei Beis, you're going to say chapter 82. What's the connection between chapter 82 and Yom Shlishi B'Shabbos? Anybody know? I had to dig deep for this one.
That's when the court used to convene.
I didn't see that. We're going to get to that in a moment. Actually, that's hold that thought. What happened in the third day of creation? Din, judgment. What's judgment? Judgment is limitation. What happened? The separation of water and land. That is limitation. When you start limiting things, that's din. That's rendering something. It's not free for all anymore. And that's why I had to do, because I found it in a commentary. It's not my commentary. If it's my commentary, you could say it's reaching, but it's not my commentary. But I said we're gonna say that we say it on Tuesdays, and I couldn't find. I didn't in the regular commentaries. I found Baruch Hashem something that was said about it. Now, Philip mentioned something else. So this was also said on Fridays, Chol Hamoed, Sukkos, right? Sukkos. Yeah, Friday Chalamayit Sukkos in the Holy Temple, and as Philip said, that was when the Sanhedrin convened, and therefore they would say it then. And there's some, I saw it written that some still say it now, and I would imagine the Sfardim say it now because they have a lot of chapters of Tehillim that they connect to different holidays. We don't have it so much, but if some say it, it's probably the Sfardim, and they probably say it on Chol Hamoed of Sukkos. They say this chapter, besides on Tuesday, also on Chol Hamoed Sukkos. So it's interesting that there is definitely a connection to us like that. That we say it on a regular basis. When I was preparing the chapter, and I realized we were saying it on Tuesdays, it's one of the best things that happened to me about learning Tehillim is that I started getting a good understanding in things that I just say usually, and now I can understand a little bit. I said, whoa, what are we saying every Tuesday, right? This is an intense chapter. We're basically calling a bunch of judges a bunch of liars, right? Not every judge, but there are judges, etc. So what's going on over here? That's what we need to do when we wake up early in the morning on Tuesday morning. that's what we need to do. So I was thinking about it. Anyways, Baruch Hashem, I found something that was said about it.
Especially in Israel these days.
No matter which side you're on.
Right, that's what I'm saying. No matter which
Exactly.
side you're on.
Exactly.
It's like,
Okay, so but on a basic level, as we said, Asaf creates this, right? He creates this chapter, he writes this chapter against judges who pervert justice. Right, so there has to be a straightforward. He doesn't mince words. He says it clearly, as we're going to see, against judges who pervert justice. Some say it was in the days of Yeshafat, because there's a pasuk by Yeshafat also that he says that he laments the judges that some words are similar to this, and he ends up firing them and hiring other judges. So some say based on that it must be from the time of Yeshafat, but either way. As Saul said, this is nothing new. This always happened, and it continues to happen. We need Mashiach to come in order to fix this. It's not something that human nature. This is talking about human nature. I'm not a judge. You're not a judge. What does it affect me? Okay, that we'll see later on in the chapter. How the Rebbe talks about this. We're going to get to that a little bit later. Okay, pasuk number 1. Mizmor l'Asaf, psalm for Asaf. Whether it's a psalm that Asaf composed or a psalm that was given to Asaf as a Levi to sing, he says like this. So number 1, the basic shot of it is very obvious that judge or judges, when you're sitting to render judgment, recognize that the Eibishter is sitting with you and God's sitting there with you. You think you're alone. You think you're just sitting there and doing whatever you want to do. Recognize that Hashem is sitting amongst you, and He wants to see if you're judging properly. So this is the way the Rashi, Mitzudas, etc. They explain this. Sforno takes it a little bit different. And it says that a judge, especially when it comes to halacha, see, if you're judging someone, if he ran a red light, if he should be guilty, or okay, so whatever, how it happens, it happens. You're rendering halacha, you're basically, I call her Rav when I have a shayla, right? And he's going to tell me what the Eibishter wants from me, right? I have to call her Rav to know if I should fast on Tisha B'Av. He's going to tell me what the Eibishter wants from me. Should I eat this Tisha B'Av? Should I eat this Tisha B'Av? Am I sick enough that I shouldn't eat? Right? Can you imagine the weight on this guy's shoulders? He's not telling me what the big book of laws, Canadian law says, or American law says. That's not. He's going to tell me what the Eibishter wants from me. That's heavy duty, right? How's he going to do the right thing? I actually had this conversation with my Rav once. He's also a Mayel, my Rav, and he did a bris in Quebec City that I also was at, but he was coming from New York, so he flew to Quebec City and he needed a ride back to Montreal. And we sat for 3 hours in the car. I mean, his phone rang off the hook, so I only got a few minutes to speak to him in between phone calls. But one of the questions that we spoke about was this, right? That it's a massive responsibility. It's an achrayus. And this pasuk, the way the Sforno explains this pasuk, he says like this. Elikim Nitzav Balas Kel, that if you're going to do it as a holy mission, Hashem will make sure that you do the right thing. And you have to approach it that way. As a Rav, you have to approach it that way. That you're obviously doing it to the best of your capabilities, right? You have to do it to the best of your capabilities without any personal interest in it whatsoever. And then you should know that Hashem is a part of it. And so it's not just when I ask my Rav a question, but he's talking about the judges, the Sanhedrin, right? If you're going to do it properly, you could recognize, you should know that David is going to help you, that you should be able to do it properly. So the Sforno gives a geschmack, a twist to it.
Didn't we do a story like that? We told a story like that, and Pasek was asked something, and he didn't know the halakha.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Yanis Eibschitz, that story with, yeah.
But then he finally, how could you not know the halakha? He said, "Let me ask you a question. Is this really?"
Is it a real story or is it a theoretical?
That it's theoretical. Oh,
That's what Shem's helping me get there.
that's what they were.
It was. I think it was Yanis Eibschitz, that story. They were hiring him as a rav in a town, and some people in the town didn't like him. So they were doing everything to try to so they came up with a very tough halachic question in order to trip him up. He didn't know the answer. So but then he asked, was it a true story? He says, no, it was a theoretical. So, theoretical. So the fact that he didn't know. So, but can you imagine if someone actually had that question, he didn't have the answer, that's a tough thing for a Rav, right? So you have to, and David helps. And it's something special about being able to have that divine. And so the pasuk, according to the Sforno, is saying, recognize David is going to sit there and help you. So you have a trouble with halacha. Don't worry, David will be there and will help you as long as it's adas kel, that it's a godly commune. It's a godly group of people, not people that are just after the money or whatever, which we're going to talk about after in the psukim afterwards. It's interesting when you talk about this idea. I have a few. Like we're going to go off topic a little bit. There's a concept in the Torah. It's a biblical concept. It's called Edim Zayim. We learned a little bit about it when we learned Gemara Makis. I don't know if you remember. Edim Zayim is that if a group of witnesses come, 2 witnesses come to the Beis Din and they accuse someone of something, of some wrongdoing, and there's a punishment with that wrongdoing. It could be a financial punishment. It could be even death, right? There's the gamut of punishments that will come for something that someone did wrong, right? But they were lying. And it comes another group of people and says, Imanu Yisem. They come and they say, you two witnesses, it's impossible that you witnessed this last Wednesday because last Wednesday you were in New York with us. Meaning it's impossible that you were able to witness something like this because Imanu Yisem, you were with us. So the pasuk says, the verse in the Torah says, "V'asisam loy kasher zamam." You have to do to the original witnesses, they get the punishment that they were trying to give to someone else, right? So let's say it was a financial punishment. They came and they say Yankel stole something worth $1,000. They're now going to be on the hook for $1,000, right? Because they tried to get someone else to do that. So it's a biblical law. It's a very unique law. You don't have it in Western law. Okay. Now, what happens is an extreme case. What happens if 2 witnesses come and they say they witnessed Yankel killing someone, and they give all the details? What happens to Yankel? Yankel can get death penalty, right? If other witnesses come and say, no, it's impossible that you saw that because you were with us somewhere else, now these 2 witnesses can get the death penalty, and they will get. If it happens. Now, what happens if they already killed the guy? And now witnesses come. Okay, it's a little technical. Now witnesses come, then they don't get a death penalty. And this is a halacha based on the fact that if it happened already, the fact that it happens because Hashem wanted it to happen. Hashem, he's responsible for something, somehow, some way that he needs it to happen. So just bringing out this idea that if a judge renders judgment properly, meaning ba'adas kel, in a holy group, and making sure that he's doing it in a proper way, Hashem is with him and makes sure that it happens the right way. Now, this is it's a little bit out there, but this is it brings out this idea. Mamle brings it up, so I figured that we should bring it up, even though it's out of a little bit out. Okay. Now, let's bring up something before we started the class, before we started the recording. We talked about this part of the pasuk. So the Gemara Brachos, and in Pirkei Avos as well, if I remember correctly, it's in chapter 3 of Pirkei Avos. It says that if 10 people are sitting together, so the Shechina dwells upon them, right? That's what it says in the Gemara. Actually, before we go to that, I mentioned this new sefer that I got, so we have to use the new sefer. So in Gemara Sanhedrin, it says this pasuk, and it says that judges should know who they're judging, in front of who they're judging, and who's ultimately gonna make them pay if they do the wrong thing. How do you know? Because Elikim Nitzav B'adas Kel, because of this pasuk. Hashem is with you when you're judging. So make sure that you're doing it in a proper manner. Make sure that it's Adas Kel. It's a group of Adas Kel. Okay, so that's one. Now, let's go back to the Gemara. The Gemara says, Amar Ravin Barav Ada Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Minayin shekadosh baruch hu motzi bebeis knesses. How do you know that Hashem is found in a shul? How do you know Hashem is found in a shul? So he says, Shenemar Elikim Nitzav B'adas Kel, because the pasuk it says that Hashem is found in Adas, in a Eda Kel. And the Gemara continues, Minayin la'asara Hashem is following. What if you have 10 people that are davening, not in a shul, but a minyan that's davening, that Shechina Imaim, that the divine presence is with them? Shenemar Elikim Nitzav B'adas Kel, because the pasuk says so. Now, and people ask me all the time, I get this question very often, why do you need 10 for a minyan? Why can't it be 5? Why do we consider 10 for a minyan? So it's this pasuk. It's this word, actually, not this pasuk. Adas is Eda. Eda, it says that it should be an Eda, it should be a group. How much is a group? So in the Torah, we have to go back to the Torah. When does it use the word Eda? For the 10 spies. And that's the correlation. It's also in Gemara Brachos. That's the correlation that we know that Eda was 10 in the Torah.
Used in a very negative way.
It happens to be used in a negative way, but it's referring to a group of 10 people, and that's when we have the word. So we have to use it, right? And therefore we know that a minyan has to be 10 people. And if you have 10 people, so you have an Eda and a Das. So then Hashem is with you. Hashem is there with you. Okay, that's the Gemara. But let's go to the Pirkei Avos, because the Pirkei Avos is more. He says, if there are 10 people sitting and studying Torah, the divine presence rests among them. What's the proof text? Our pasuk. Now, but what if it's less? We're less. We're not. We're getting close to 10, right? We're 7 with everybody online. No, we're 9. We're getting close. With them we're 9. Okay, good. I'm double because I'm here with you and I'm also online. So maybe we're 10. But what if you're less than 10? So then it's not worth learning. Of course you should learn, right? So the Mishnah continues. So he says that there's also for 5. Because that there's another pasuk that says even 3.
For everyone.
And then it says, and how about what?
Listen to somebody.
Right? So it says, what does it say? It says, in any place that you mention my name, Azkir, you just mention my name, I'll come to you and I'll bless you. It's a powerful pasuk, right? So on the one hand, you have the pasuk, our pasuk, that Elikim Nitzav B'adas Kel, Hashem finds himself when there's a group of 10. But then, even if you're randomly in your house, you're sitting on your couch, or you're sitting by the dining room table, or you're standing and you're ready to daven privately in your own home, and you call out Hashem's name, I'll come to you. So as I mentioned in today's email, so what do you need in the end? Hashem's going to come to you. You go running to shul. Hashem's going to come to you. Famously, on a regular basis, we send out an email that God's not in the synagogue, right? Yeah, right. We have to make place for Hashem in our homes. So, what's the specialty of being in a shul? So, actually, this kapitel became very special to me today because I realized that this was the Rebbe's kapitel, and the Rebbe was 81 when I was born. So, this was the kapitel of 1983, in the year I was born. So the Rebbe spoke about it a few times. So on Yor Aleph Nisan, on the Rebbe's actual birthday, when he started saying this kapitel, so he spoke about it, and he brings up this question. He says, the Gemara says 10, but the Mishnah also says 1. So what's unique about our pasuk? It's a much longer sikha of the Rebbe, which we're not going to get into all the details. But basically, the Rebbe's conclusion is that look at this pasuk. Elikim Nitzav. Nitzav means standing. If there's a group of 10, Hashem's already there. And not only, it doesn't say Oimed, Nitzav. Nitzav is a very strong standing. It's like when you have a tree, it ain't going anywhere. The tree, Nitzav, it's there. It's not going anywhere, right? It's planted. It's not going anywhere, right? As opposed to, if I call it Hashem, Hashem will come. But it's not here, right? So that's one thing, that on the one hand, in a minyan, so to speak, in a shul, as the Gemara says, the Gemara mentions both, right? The Gemara mentions a shul, and the Gemara mentions a group of 10 people. So in a minyan or in a shul, Hashem's presence is already there. Not only there, very, very strongly there. Yeah, of course, you could access Hashem wherever you want. Just mention His name and He'll come. But not only that, there's another aspect also that we have to keep in mind. That where Hashem is Nitzav, right, where Hashem is, so to speak, planted, that's a very high level of God. Where Hashem is going to come to me, how much could I access? What level can I get Hashem to come to? So therefore, obviously, the level of spirituality in a shul is much higher, based on these psukim itself that Rebbe brings. Based on the psukim itself, the level of spirituality in a minyan or in a shul is much higher than what I could access by myself. That being said, it's better than, of course, if you're at home and you should daven and you should connect to Hashem. It's just that you can access a higher level of spirituality when you daven in a shul or with a minyan. And they're not mutually exclusive, right? Sometimes you daven in a shul without a minyan. And that's also an idea. So that was the Rebbe's, part of the Rebbe's Sikha on his birthday when he started saying this kapitel. A few months later, on Lag Baimer, a little bit more than a month later, on Lag Baimer, so there was a rally for children, and the Rebbe was still talking about this pasuk. And the word Nitzav is also in one of the 12 psukim that the children say, V'hine Hashem Nitzav Alav. And the Rebbe brought out this pasuk again and said that you might think that this is talking about adults. The Rebbe was talking to children. He says, you might think that this is all about adults. No, even a child that comes to a shul, is in a shul environment and sits in a shul, sits down in a shul, Hashem is Nitzav there, Hashem is there, and it inspires the child and it helps him overcome the Yetzer Hara. That's this pasuk. So it's a very powerful pasuk. We didn't even, we're still on pasuk number 1, but it's a very, very powerful pasuk. Okay. Actually, when I was preparing the class, I was thinking that maybe I should even just take this whole part and do it at the end. But I said, yeah, we usually don't do that, so I figured I won't do that either. But so that's pasuk number 1. Let's go to pasuk number 2. So now, if the Eibishter, if Hashem is there sitting between you while you're judging, while you're adjudicating a case, Admasai, so the pasuk continues. What are you doing? Right? What are you doing? Why would you judge wickedly? Why would you judge wickedly and try to fawn towards the evil and to the wealthy? Right? What are you doing? Hashem is sitting there with you. Why? What? You're afraid of the wealthy? You're afraid of the evil, powerful people? What are you doing? The Alshich and others. There's some others that say that it's not willful. It's interesting because most of the basic commentaries say that these judges are either afraid or they're in it for the money, right? And therefore, on Shabbos, someone said a joke. Said after the revolution in Russia, so he said they took away everybody's guns, right? Who had guns? So they gave guns to police officers. So the police officers in Moscow, and they gave them guns, and they were told every 2 weeks they come back to the base and they get their salary. And there's 2 police officers that never showed up. After a year and a half, they finally show up to the base, and the commander says, "I don't understand. You're supposed to come back every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks we're supposed to come back." So he says, "Yeah, you were supposed to come back every 2 weeks to collect your salary." So he says, "Oh, we were supposed to come to collect the salary? I thought we used our gun for our salary." But yeah, so this is who this pasuk is talking about, right? But the Alshich says that it could be it's talking about judges that are not well versed in adjudicating cases. It's commentaries, and therefore,
What's the definition of Avel?
evil, wrong. Yeah. Tishbadu Avel, wrong.
But see, this is
Wickedly, he
what I don't understand the
translates.
translation. I'm a little
What does he say
stuck
there?
He says, "How long will you pervert justice and favor the wicked seller?" In other words, till Avel, there's nothing wrong. It's not like what you said is, "How long are you going to judge the wicked fairly?" No, it doesn't say that. Till there, it just says, "How long are you going to judge
Avel.
evil?" That's your subject. You're judging evil.
Oh,
There's
no.
nothing wrong with judging evil.
Avel is about the judgment, not about the person.
So you can judge evil. You're supposed to judge evil.
No.
It's only when you shine tifutella, that's the bad thing.
No,
Oh,
so
you favor
no.
the
No. So Avel is not referring to the subject matter. It's referring to the wickedness of the judge. Tishbetu Avel, render judgment in a wicked way. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Okay.
So
Okay.
right from
That's completely different from what you said before. Now the criticism is on the judge.
on the judge. Yeah. Straight up. Pasuk Beis say if Pasuk Aleph is telling you what kind of opportunity you have, David is sitting there with you, and as the Swarnu says that if you are doing it in a righteous manner, David is going to help you do it in such a beautiful way. So what are you doing? Why are you doing it in a wicked way? How dare you, so to speak?
So Avel is not the object of the sentence. You know, Tishbetu is the verb.
Yeah.
Avel, but it's not. You're not judging evil.
No.
You're judging
In an evil
way.
fashion. Exactly. Good.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's not so evident.
So here he translates a little bit different than probably what you have. He says, "How long will you judge wickedly?" Right. So it makes it clearer. Yeah. Pasuk Gimel, Shiftu Dol v'Yasem. You should render judgment Dol v'Yasem for the poor and for the orphan and for the poor and the destitute. Hatzdiku, make sure that righteousness comes to them. So all the commentaries jump on this right away and say, obviously, that they should come out victorious in judgment if it's supposed to go in their way. It's not saying that you should ignore, right? You should ignore what the judgment is and only do it on behalf of the poor, etc., etc. It's if it favors them, don't be afraid of the rich and the evil, etc. That's the Mitzudas mentions, and this is something. It's interesting because this is a pasuk in the Torah. This is not something new that right, like Sisu Pnei Dal, like Seder Pnei God, right? These are psukim in the Torah of how you should render judgment, and you should make sure to do it in a proper way. But the Mitzvah says that a person might say, a dayan, a judge on a bezdin might say that, you know what, you have a rich person here and you have a poor person. The rich says that the poor person owes $100, right? If I say that the rich person is wrong, he's going to get terribly embarrassed. He's going to get terribly embarrassed. If he gets terribly embarrassed, it's not going to be good for the community. He might decide to stop giving tzedakah. I'm just giving a random idea that might go through someone's mind, right? So what might I want to do? I might want to say that, you know what, I'll render judgment on behalf of the rich person. But afterwards, I'll pull him to the side and say, you know, really, I was trying to save face for you. Don't go collect $100. And he'll listen to me because he's trying to follow the halacha. You know, he's coming to court because he's trying to follow the halacha. So, but it's to save his embarrassment. This is a pasuk in the Torah you're not allowed to do, obviously, right? I mean, to us it's obvious. The pasuk, the Torah had to say it because to some people it's not obvious, right? Yeah.
Much of the judicial system a mediation system.
Okay.
Much of it was a mediation system, not you stand in front of me and I say you did that and I bring it up and it's not.
So the answer to your
oriented
yes.
system. So therefore, when they're saying risk to the needy and deliver for that, it is even more important that line. Okay.
So yes and no, because obviously, not obviously, the concept in halacha of rendering judgment is that your first step is to try to mediate. But if Yankel comes and says Shmerel owes him $100, there's no mediation. There's no mediation. Do you have proof? And if you have a document that's proof, so then, or you have witnesses, meaning that's not mediation. If someone's trying, my field, the line was here, the line should be here. That is mediation. Yes. So that's what I'm saying. The answer is yes and no. It depends for what. Sometimes halacha, and the Rambam famously says this, and it's very, very important that when it comes to Judaism, yes, the first step of a bezdin is to try to mediate between the two parties. Always in halacha, before anything else. And today in secular law, they try to do that too tremendously for many reasons, not the same reasons as halacha, but still, it's something that's done until today. Yeah. Now, Amlaya says that. Rendering justice, we say it has to go both ways, and it brings up the idea of making sure that if it goes in favor of the poor person or if it goes in favor of the rich person, that you make sure that you render it in hatzdiku with righteousness to make sure that it's done in a right way.
The fact is that you would not find a line like number 3 and line 4, especially in most writings of that time in the world.
Correct. Exactly.
You were asking me before why they stood out to me so much.
Right. Good.
And those are the 2 lines that stand out to me. And
Exactly.
That's the reason why.
And not only from times of David HaMelech, going back to the Torah even.
You would never find that.
Right. Good.
Okay.
So pasuk 4, Paltu Dal ve'Evyain. So save the poor and the destitute from the evil hands. So Metzudas translates it as rescue them from improper creditors, people that are coming them improperly, not righteously, not justified. The Radak says rescue them from creditors that want to kidnap them, right? Paltu, rescue them from miyad, from their hands, because they're trying to kidnap them on behalf of a debt that they without going through the judiciary system. The Sfarnu says rescue, that the job of the judge, the job of Dayan, is rescue them even if they didn't come to you for judgment. Even if you just hear that Yankel's being harassed by Shmerel, etc., your job is not to wait for them to come to the Bezdin. You have to even be proactive about it. That's the way the Sfarnu learns it. And the Mamlay is very interesting. Pasuk 3, Mamlay says, Shiftu, first of all, render judgment. You have to render judgment. So let's say Shmerel comes and says Yankel owes him $100. And he owes him, but he doesn't have the $100 to pay. So Mamlay says, that's Pasuk 4. Now help them. Now save them. Right? Yeah, you have to render judgment. He owes the money. Fine, he owes the money. Now paltu dal ve'Evyain. Save the poor and the destitute. You help them. Bring them somewhere where they could collect some tzedakah, or help them find a job, or help them, whatever it is that you need to do. That's pasuk 4. I found it to be very because otherwise it's really a repetition. So the Mamlay says that it's a continuation of pasuk 3. Pasuk Hey. So this is the idea that we know that when a person doesn't render proper judgment, what does it say? When a person takes bribes, the pasuk says, that when you take a bribe, it blinds you. And we talked about this recently. I don't think it was in a Tehillim class. I think it was in one of our other classes, a Parsha class recently, where we talked about bribes. Remember, I said a joke about the rabbi that was going deaf, right? The rabbi was going deaf, and they asked him, so he's getting older. So he said, what's the message from God over here? Why are you going deaf? So it says about bribes. If you take bribes, you go blind, not deaf, right? You're gonna go blind. So he says, I never took a bribe. I was promised many, but I never got any. So I heard about bribes. I didn't get any bribes. Talk about when you run a shul, you run a non-profit. Yeah, get many commitments. Commitments. I got a lot. Baruch Hashem, we survive because we get much more than commitments. But still, it's a good job. So it takes a bribe. So the pasuk says it blinds you. So we can take the pasuk over here is talking in a literal sense, but what's blind? That as soon as you take a bribe, the Gemara says many stories about it. As soon as you take a bribe, all of a sudden your head starts working in a different way. You want to find a merit for the guy, even if you're trying to be honest, you're not going to be able to be honest. And therefore, any true judge, a judge that has Yir Shamayim, has fear of heaven, will never take a case if he's remotely connected to that case because of So that's what happens. You walk, it blinds, and that's the way Rashi explains it. And the end of the pasuk is also very, very powerful because when you render one of the foundations of the world is din, right? There's peace, truth, and judgment, right? So we're talking about judgment. It's one of the three legs that the world stands on. We're sitting on a chair that has four legs. You take away one leg, the chair could still stand. But if you have a chair that only has three legs, any of the legs are equally important, and the chair will actually fall if it doesn't have one of the legs. The world cannot exist without din. And look at the chaos that does go on around the world when din is being played with. So you talk about Saul's mentioned Israel, but even in the United States, when there's a court case that goes and people get riled up, etc., that chaos is literally a threat to the foundation of the world, and that's what the pasuk ends off. That's the end of pasuk 5. Mitzvah says that it's not that they go blind; it's that they're in the dark and they don't even recognize it. The Radak also mentioned something similar, that they don't know halacha well enough, so that they shouldn't be adjudicating these kinds of cases because they can't render judgment properly. So they should stay away from these kinds of things. Why? Because that will create chaos, and foundations of the world will fall. Pasuk Vav, Pasuk 6, Ani Amarti Elikim Atem. So this pasuk will throw you off, because all of a sudden, Ani Amarti, who's I? I said,
That's right.
It's a funny pasuk.
Because when I was asking this question to myself, when does God the first sentence, it's about God. God is actually judging with judges, and that's why judges have to be very careful how they judge, because it's a godly endeavor. They're doing a godly judgment. Next, Admatai Tishkatu doesn't talk about God. The guy's not complaining to God, the guy's complaining to the judges. How long? Okay, God.
That's Asaf talking already.
Yeah, how long are you gonna
judge wickedly,
judge evil and save the poor and do all that? But you don't understand. He's still criticizing the judges. Lo yadu v'lo yavinu. That's the judges who don't understand anything. They're walking around in darkness, like you said. They don't know the halacha. Ani amarti elokim atem.
So who's saying this?
Who's saying that now? Is God saying that?
I mean, I have no other explanation. I mean, based on Rashi and whatever.
It should be Ani amarti elokim. It should be in quotes. And let me find out where's the proof.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's good gazak. Yeah, and that's the truth. So Rashi comes and says that Rashi comes and says that when the title was given, you were like angels. Ani amarti elikim atem. You were like angels, and therefore, and uvnei elyon, you were lofty individuals, right? And therefore, if you would have stayed in that without fault at that point, death wouldn't have any effect on you. Okay, that's what Rashi says. Listen to Gemara. This is why I got the sefer. Gemara Avodah Zarah. Amar Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish says, "Bayu v'nachzik toiva laviseinu." Let's give credit where credit's due to our fathers, to our forefathers. Because if they wouldn't have sinned, what did Rashi just say? That Ani Amarti is Hashem saying that if you would have not sinned, Elikim Atem, you would have been like angels, right? So, but then they sinned, and then the next pasuk continues and says, Achin ka'adam t'mos, you're just going to die like regular humans, right? That's which we're going to get to in a moment. But he says, Ilmali loichatu, but if they wouldn't have sinned, we would never have been born. They would have been angels. We wouldn't have kids. What a Gemara. It's a fascinating. I love this Gemara. And then he brings Shenemar, because it says in the pasuk, and he might tell them, etc. It's a fascinating Gemara. Just the way it fits in with this pasuk. I mean, anyways, it's a very geschmack. So, yeah.
Go back to 6.
We're in 6, yeah.
Angels are perfect.
Right.
Okay. So God has appointed these perfect people to be judges. And you are the best from the very just whatever.
You bring up. It's the Rebbe has a sikh on it, but it was very mystical, and I'm not going to go into it. And I didn't prepare it well, so I'm not. The Rebbe asks a similar question to that. He says, "Hold on a second. God created them angels, so then how could they sin?" What are you saying? He's like, wait, which one is it? Anyways, it's a good question. It's a good question.
Right?
It's a good question. The Radak says here in Pasuk 6 that the judges are called Elikim. If you look in the Torah, there's a few times that Bekerev Elikim Yishbait, that when the Torah refers to judges, adjudicated cases, they're called Elokim, right? So when they're judging truthfully and honestly and properly, etc., so then they're going to be Taka Elokim. They're going to be, that's Ani Amarti Elokim Atam. You have the opportunity to be on the level of Elokim or Bnei Elyon, of people of high stature. That's the opportunity, right? That's yeah. But unfortunately, and then we go into Pasuk Zayin, Pasuk 7. Right? But unfortunately, it's not the case. As Rashi says, but you'll be like Adam Rishon. What happened to Adam Rishon? Adam Rishon also was supposed to live forever. And what did he do? He made a mistake. And therefore, he didn't live forever. So the same thing over here with the people. Also, they made a mistake, and therefore, they don't live forever. The Radak says, that Achin Kadam to Muslim, that I see Ka'adam, that you're just like every human being, you have your flaws like every and therefore and you'll be like I'm just like one of the many, nothing remarkable about you. Achin. It's a very hard. Yeah, however, it's a good translation.
I said you were like angels. However,
yeah, exactly. Meaning you had the opportunity to be like this, but you ended up just being a regular Joe Schmo type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he uses the word prince. He doesn't use.
So here he translates prince, but it's not. Sarim is a minister. So I don't know why he uses the word prince over here. Okay. And the way the commentaries talk about it. It's a judge is a person of stature, right? So a fall for such a person is very high. So it's like a minister that's falling.
Talk about the Parshas Nitzavim. Talk about that the Netzer is like a sar. he stands like a guard, he's
Right.
the guard of Hashem. So maybe this refers back to that. God stands like a sentinel among the judges, but you're just gonna, like one of the Sarim, you're not what your forefathers were.
Right.
It uses the word Sarim, maybe that refers to what you were before was a Netzev, like Hashem was a Netzev, and now you're just gonna fall like any mortal
Right.
prince.
Good.
Just because the word, it's why use Sarim?
Right.
Just like we asked, why use Netzav? Why use Netzev?
Yeah. So later on in the summer of 1983, Yud Beis Tammuz, if I remember correctly, so the Rebbe again talks about this chapter.
It's a rabbi.
So later on in the summer, in Yud Beis Tammuz, the 12th of Tammuz, the Rebbe talks about this chapter, and the Rebbe says that what's the story over here? Why are we talking about judges? What does that have to do with me or you? I'm not a judge. You're not a judge. I have no aspirations of being a judge. So what's the relevance to me, and what's the relevance to you? What's the uniqueness? What's the specialty of this chapter, and what should it mean to me? And really, the answer is, especially now that we're up to Parsha Shoftim, the answer is that we are all judges of something. We all are judges of something. We judge what comes out of our mouth. We judge what goes into our mouth. We judge how we're going to do things, and we should recognize that yes, there are people that are judges for others, but we have to be a judge for ourselves. And we could be a meshuchad. We could be bribed. We could bribe ourselves, convincing ourselves that this is okay for me. Recognize that you're bribed, right? That Adam Karavetz al-Atzmai, that a person is close to himself, and therefore. So what are you going to be? What are you going to be? Are you going to be pasuk 6? Or are you going to be pasuk 7? Are you going to be Elikim Atam, meaning more spiritual Bnei Elyon, or are you going to be God of the Muslims, just a regular Joshua? That's what the question is, right? How are you going to judge yourself? How are you going to make sure that you judge what you're going to do and how you're going to do in the best possible manner? And that applies to everybody, not just to judges. That applies to everybody. Judges something or something, especially when it comes to themselves. And pasuk 8, final pasuk, Kum Elikim Shaf Haaretz. Here, Asaf is already praying to Hashem. Hashem, you do your thing. This is already enough. Nobody can fix this. Only Hashem can fix it. Mashiach can fix it. Hashem can fix it. But here he's praying to Hashem that he should destroy all the bad judges from the people, and everything should be under Hashem's control and under Hashem's power, because that's what's going to bring goodness and justice to the world. The Metzudas, don't worry about it. The Metzudas.
What I missed.
There's a recording. No kidding, I'll tell you. The Metzudas says that Asaf is asking Hashem that he should judge the judgment of the poor and destitute because they need Hashem's intervention. And the Svarnu says Kiata Sinchal B'chol Hagayim. The end of the pasuk says the end is referring to the fact that there's always righteous among the nations, and Hata Sinchal, that Hashem will judge, but he'll also uplift those from the other nations, not just the Jewish people, also from the other nations, those Chasidim, Elam, those who are righteous amongst the other nations. Hashem will help them as well. It's interesting. So the Rebbe, actually, maybe this was the Yud Beis Tammuz for bringing it. The Rebbe brings up this final pasuk and says, when a regular court judges, so if they're going to render judgment, Yikav Adin Sahar, if they come and they say the judgment is this way, so it's this way and it's not that way. One guy walks out and says I won, one guy walks out and says I lost, right? Not so. Kumelikim Shaf Haaretz. If Hashem judges the world, everybody feels a winner. If Hashem comes and judges it, we need a Mashiach to be able to feel it. But so the Rebbe says that's what it means. Hashem come and judge, make everybody a winner already. So why is there strife? Why is this one fighting with that one? Why is that one having it? Enough with all this. Bring real judgment, which is rachamim, which is mercy from the Eibishter. That will make everybody a winner, and that's not the way a regular court does it. That's the way mishpat comes from the level of Hashem. Now, that's we finished chapter 8.
Exactly.